the calming through the storm. The warmth of sizzling water with a sting so pronounced, yet easily comparable to the contrasted sting of an ice-cold lake. See, both provide a pain that seems to push our nerves to their limits. Yet, it is all within our minds how much we can endure through these burning sensations. To feel at peace with the struggles we face, life as we live it remains entangled with a certain shock value. Simply put, it is an interruption to what we know to be good for us within the long term of our minds. Note some scriptures that coincide with this point in Matthew chapter 14. We'll start here in verse 22. Without delay, Jesus made his disciples board the boat and go ahead of him to the opposite shore while he sent the crowds away. Of course, this was right after he had performed the miracle of feeding those 5,000 men alongside their wives and children that awaited his teachings on the shore as they arrived, with only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Continuing forward in verse 23 onward, it reads, After sending the crowds away, Jesus went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. By now, the boat was many hundreds of yards away from land, struggling against the waves because the wind was against them. But in the 4th watch of the night, he came to them, walking on the sea. Now when they caught sight of him walking on the sea, the disciples were troubled, saying, It is an apparition, and they cried out in their fear. But at once Jesus spoke to them, saying, Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid. To make this more clear, pay attention to this illustration. You're trapped, floating away on this boat at the mercy of these intense waves. You are defenseless against the current trial you appear to be facing. Your anxiety makes you feel frozen in place. The frozen waters around you seem simply too painful to traverse. No warmth, little time. Yet, you see a fire and shelter in sight, just in the distance, with a calming voice telling you to take courage. What would you feel in this moment? Would you feel relief? Would you sigh and dream about the warmth of that flame that can ease this cold sting of the chilling wind and waves splashing across your skin? A daydream of solid ground with a roof over your head? Well, likely many of us would. Yet, is this daydream, or better yet, this idea of salvation, enough to save us from the calamity that we're about to face? Well, clearly not. Let's continue reading deeper still in Matthew chapter 14, starting again here in verse 27 onward. It reads, But at once Jesus spoke to them, saying, Take courage, it is I, do not be afraid. So Peter answered him, saying, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you over the waters. Then Jesus said, Come. So Peter got out of the boat and walked over the waters and went toward Jesus. But looking at the windstorm, he became afraid. And when he started to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. Immediately stretching out his hand, Jesus caught hold of him and said to him, You with little faith, Why did you give way to doubt? See, friends, in relation to our illustration of that warm fire and shelter just up ahead, Jesus is that warmth, that shelter that pulls us up from the waves onto dry land, that figure that calls out to us to have courage. But if we do not try our hardest to reach our hand out for him, to truly ask him for help, then we will perish to the cold embrace of this world, trying to tighten its grasp around us. Ask yourself, when you have the truth in sight, just in the horizon, this loving warmth, the salvation that can pull you out of your dire situations, what is your mind telling you to do? Do you reach your hands into these figurative freezing waters to pull your sinking boat with all your might to this much-needed safety? Or do you give way to doubt, sinking from the fears of a temporary trial? You see, friends, the storm that made Peter sink was a distraction. It deterred him from the salvation of Jesus, who had just performed an unthinkable miracle before them all hours prior. But did you note this key point about Peter in this account? Jesus called to Peter with his request, and he became the only other person to walk on water. Through faith in Jehovah God and the power that he provided his Son, Jesus Christ. So what does this tell us, friends? Mental fortitude with faith and good works is our preparation for all of these hardships that we face. Yet, even as prepared as we are, we will stumble at times. We are all facing our very own storm day in and day out, with an even greater storm approaching just over the horizon with the Battle of Armageddon. There is no physical battle without first facing the mental battle. Internally, we are at war with the unclean desires of our flesh. You see, when you train your mind to endure, yes, when you train your heart to be subject to proper thinking rather than impulsive emotions, then suddenly this test of endurance feels less like a brick wall and more like a fallen tree in your path. Yes, friends, however you climb or stumble over your obstacles in life, Jehovah sees your efforts and smiles with his blessing sent upon you. There is no set way of perfection in our actions, only our efforts from a place of love to do what is right. Yes, for ourselves, but most of all, for him, Jehovah God. When salvation is just up ahead, we may feel hot, we may feel cold, we may be burned, and yes, we will mess up. Yet, a life whether hot or cold still maintains itself as one mental battle to be conquered, to be overcome. You can endure. You are not the first to feel alone. You are not the first to feel afraid. You are not the first to feel unworthy. You are human, and you are loved by me, just as you are loved by your Creator. Your trials make you strong. You believe these things to be your weaknesses, yet, in understanding how far you've come, traversing the waters, walking over them away from the storm, to be here, listening to me now. You are a fighter. You have faced so much to be here now. Bow your head in your lonesome nights and pray. Bow your head in your greatest moments and pray. Bow your head with appreciation for another day to grow and pray. Just as Isaiah chapter 42, verses 5 through 8 reads, This is what the true God, Jehovah, says, the creator of the heavens and the grand one who stretched them out, the one who spread out the earth and its produce, the one who gives breath to the people on it and spirit to those who walk on it. I, Jehovah, have called you in righteousness. I have taken hold of your hand. I will safeguard you and give you as a covenant for the people and as a light of the nations, for you to open the blind eyes, to bring the prisoner out of the dungeon and those sitting in darkness out of the prison. I am Jehovah. That is my name. I give my glory to no one else, nor my praise to graven images. Jehovah is holding on to your hand tightly, my friends. Our King Jesus, who performed many loving miracles, sits closely beside him as a direct reflection of our God. Put your faith in Jehovah and serve him well, just as Jesus commanded us. Then there will be no storm that you cannot endure. Thank you. If any of you wish to have a deeper understanding of what the Bible says, I encourage you to visit jw.org. It may just be the first step in your journey of having a loving relationship with our God. Thank you.